Vasiliy Lomachenko is returning to the ring. Not long ago, Lomachenko officially announced his retirement from professional boxing. And honestly, he walked away in the perfect way, as the reigning IBF lightweight world champion. In his final fight, Loma even managed to stop George Kambosos Jr. before the final bell, proving that even at 38 years old he still belongs among the elite fighters in the sport. At the time, many people believed that was the perfect ending to a legendary career. Everything about it felt complete. Lomachenko had already built one of the greatest resumes of his generation, achieved almost everything possible in boxing, and left the sport on top. But apparently, the story of Vasiliy Lomachenko is not over yet. According to reports from Mike Coppinger, the Ukrainian star has decided to come back, and his return is expected to happen sometime this fall. What makes this even more exciting is that Loma reportedly has no interest in tune-up fights, warm-up opponents, or easy comeback victories designed just to rebuild momentum. Instead, the reports say he only wants the biggest fights possible. And that immediately becomes incredibly interesting, especially with all the rumors surrounding the new boxing project connected to Dana White and Turki Alalshik. The timing could not be more intriguing. What's more, Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney have already reacted to the news of Lomachenko's possible return. And this is where the excitement really starts building, because if Loma truly comes back only for major fights, there are so many huge possibilities waiting for him. Maybe fans could finally get the long-awaited super fight against Gervonta Tank Davis, a matchup people have wanted to see for years. Maybe we could see a rematch with Devin Haney after their controversial first fight. Or perhaps Lomachenko versus Shakur Stevenson, a fight that boxing fans have been discussing non-stop for a very long time. If Lomachenko really is returning with the intention of taking only elite-level fights, then boxing could be about to witness some absolutely massive events and unforgettable fight nights. Despite last year's announcement about retiring from boxing, Lomachenko's contract with Top Rank officially expired on May 12, making the Ukrainian star a free agent and significantly simplifying the possibility of organizing massive super fights. One of the potential opponents being discussed is Shakur Stevenson, who is reportedly willing to move back down to lightweight for the right fight. There is also serious interest from Suga Boxing in making such a bout happen. Devin Haney himself supported Lomachenko's decision to return to the ring, reacting with, "Wow, welcome back, Loma." So let's move directly to the main topic, the news that the great Vasiliy Lomachenko is planning a comeback. The report came from Mike Coppinger. The real question is, how should we feel about this? Are we excited, or should we actually be worried? Is this a good idea or a bad one? Personally, I lean more toward thinking it's probably a bad idea. Lomachenko has already dealt with injuries during previous training camps. If I remember correctly, he underwent multiple surgeries on his shoulder and elbow. When he first stepped away from boxing, he was already 36 years old, so maybe at that point he genuinely believed he had accomplished everything he needed to accomplish and that his body could no longer keep going at the same level. Perhaps he thought, "I've done everything I was supposed to do, and now I want to focus on other things in life. So why come back now at 38 years old?" And I say all of this as one of the biggest Lomachenko fans imaginable. A few days ago, I recorded something similar to a podcast where I had to choose the most technically skilled boxer of all time, and I picked Loma. That's how highly I think of him. I'm a huge fan of Vasiliy Lomachenko. What he does inside the ring is pure genius. But the problem is that boxing is a young man's game, and he's already 38. 38. I just don't love this idea. Maybe he's coming back because the money being offered is simply too big to ignore. He was always somewhat undersized for his division anyway, and now he's only returning for massive fights. It almost feels like somebody approached him and said, Here's an enormous amount of money, fight this guy. And honestly, only two names immediately come to mind. The first is Gervonta Tank Davis. There have been rumors for years about that fight potentially happening. Maybe Tank has finally decided he's willing to fight Lomachenko, especially if the financial offer is huge enough. The second name is Shakur Stevenson. And that matchup could be even more dangerous in some ways. Skill for skill, Shakur is right there with Lomachenko. Technically, they're on a very similar level. The difference is that Lomachenko is now 38 years old, smaller physically, and probably no longer at his absolute peak. That's why I'm still uncomfortable with the comeback. Lomachenko has participated in many elite-level fights throughout his career, but strangely enough, he never truly had that defining mega-super fight that completely transcended boxing. Not in the same way as his fellow Ukrainian Alexander Usyk, who over the last 4 or 5 years has built an entire legacy through gigantic fights on the world stage. For a long time, I believed Lomachenko would eventually reach that same level historically, the kind of status Usyk has now. Usyk is currently viewed as one of the greatest fighters of his era, maybe even one of the greatest ever. Honestly, I don't think Lomachenko can quite be placed in the same category anymore. Usyk became the undisputed champion in 2 different weight divisions. That's historic. Still, I always expected Lomachenko to eventually achieve that same kind of legendary standing, if you understand what I mean. But in the end, I'm not entirely excited about this comeback. Because he's returning only for super fights, and super fights are the most dangerous fights possible.